Welcome to the Brand Boss Show, empowering you to rock your brand like a boss. This show exists to share all the tools, tips, and secrets you need to maximize the impact of your brand.
Welcome back, brand bosses. This week, I have the honor of being joined by Ben Leavitt. He is an expert in many areas of social media, but I have to tell you guys, he's also a rockin' YouTuber, and I discovered one of his videos about Instagram and literally stayed up binge watching until 3 a.m. The content was so good, so valuable. I started employing even just one of those video tips and saw my Instagram following grow by 50 followers in 1 week. So I am super, super excited to have you here, Ben. Thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for, first of all, the compliment. I love to hear that when people take some value from the video. So that's so awesome that you started binge watching. That's always the goal. And I'm super excited to share some stuff about Instagram and anything else today. I'm super excited. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Well, let's, before we dive too much into the content, do you want to take a minute and just introduce yourself to the Brand Boss community who might not be familiar with you yet?
Yeah, for sure. So hi, brand bosses. My name is Ben Leavitt. That's my name. You can find me on YouTube and then on Instagram, just Ben Leavitt _. I'm a social media marketer where I help businesses, entrepreneurs, and creators leverage the social media platforms to expand their message and increase their business.
Awesome. And how did you get into that?
So that started when I really became fascinated with it in my second year of college because I was in the internship program. So we had to do internships, and it seemed like almost every business was looking for someone to come in and be their social media whiz kid. And almost everyone was getting in there and being very disappointed because we didn't get taught this stuff in school, but they assumed that we did. So after a somewhat negative experience at my first placement with them wanting me to be an expert, that really motivated me to want to become somewhat of that. So I invested so much of my own time beyond just working there, learning the ins and outs of these platforms. And I think when things become easy to you, it typically is your sign that you're in the right lane. And all of these concepts that to other people seem so obscure or difficult to understand seemed very natural for me. So I just kind of stuck with that and then built from there.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, I'm a huge, huge believer in the power of just diving in and learning and just lifelong learning. And, I was a
100%.
self-taught designer before I ever went back to school for a paper degree,
100%. And that's the best way to do it.
Absolutely. So all of the business owners right now are navigating so much.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I want to do with this particular series is put tools in their hands that they can take and start using right now to pivot their businesses, to amplify their message, to really show up for their people in the way that they need to right now.
Yeah.
So one of those platforms that's obviously very powerful for that is Instagram. And the thing that I love so much about Instagram, every platform has its own strengths, weaknesses, whatever.
Yeah.
Instagram to me is all about authenticity, which is funny because everybody talks about oh, here's the Instagram photo, that's all posed and filtered and whatever. And there's definitely a lot of that. But I feel like, especially for some of the, I guess, bigger influencers that I follow, there's a lot of behind the scenes. There's a lot of raw. There's a lot of real. And I feel like those are usually the people who have the biggest following because everybody wants authenticity, and for your brand, there's nothing more powerful you can do than show up as actually who you are and be true to that. And I feel like Instagram is a phenomenal platform for that. So do you want to kind of speak to that for a minute from a business perspective?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you hit it right on the nail in saying that the authenticity speaks to the fans and consumers. But I think it doesn't matter as much the number of fans. I think it's the level of connection that it allows you to create. I think a lot of business owners they give up on Instagram far too quickly because they don't see these vanity metrics. But when you think about it, even to say you're hypothetical, you're a plumbing company. If you have 100 people in your community that you have disposal at for free all the time, that's a substantial number completely for free. And that's all at your fingertips whenever you want it. So I think getting away from the vanity metrics, because those followers will come with time, and also success in terms of followers is relative to what you're doing. And then instead focusing on the relationship aspect of it, that's where you can find the real success and value behind Instagram. And that just comes through interacting and being genuine, like you said.
100%. I love that you brought up that it's about like the relationship that you have with those people, because one of the things that I think has turned a lot of people off from Instagram, particularly probably in the business side of things, is all those like, hey, buy followers, whatever. And so you see these accounts that have like hundreds and thousands of followers, but sometimes those aren't real people. Those aren't
Most of
people
the
that,
time they're not.
yeah, they don't have real engagement with those people. They're not building real relationships. And in
No.
business, the most powerful thing you can do is build genuine relationship. So, would you talk for a minute about the power of Instagram to do that?
Yes. So from twofold, like obviously naturally from running a business, relationships are paramount. There should be the focus going forward for everything. But even from an Instagram exclusive perspective, like talking about just performance on Instagram, their algorithm is so smart to the point where they can smell phony a mile away. So if you're not connecting with these people in a real manner, even if they are real people, they won't show your content to them. So you could have what is termed ghost followers, which would essentially be followers that are there. They add to the number that you total have, but they don't even get shown your content. So they're essentially useless, and they
Mm.
actually harm your account more than help it because your engagement rate will be lower. And that is one of the triggers to Instagram saying if a content is a good piece of content or not. And then that will dictate your ability to rank in hashtags, get on the explore page, be shown to new people. So relationships are paramount. That's one of the things that I stress for anybody that I work with, and even myself, is creating that genuine relationship, because that is obviously going to deepen the relationship one-to-one, but it's also going to help your ability to attract more similar people or more potential customers. So there's so much value in doing that. It can be tedious, but it's well worth it. And you have to think beyond Instagram and the value that that's providing, and it will provide down the line. It's all generative and it's long lasting too.
Sure. So you touched on some things there. And I know when it comes to Instagram and social media, sometimes it can feel like a mystery. Like, okay, this post got like 60 likes or engagements, and this one got two, and
Yeah.
everybody's talking about algorithms and whatever. Can you kind of demystify that for business owners for a minute?
Yeah, for sure. So I think it's very important to track your analytics. So I think that don't be discouraged from being presented to them. So definitely turn your account into a business account as soon as you can, because I think knowledge is power. And this provides you the opportunity to actually have that knowledge. But like you said, it can range greatly. And that's because there's so many variables that come into play. You would not believe how many questions I get saying, oh, it's just not working, Ben. It's just not working. It's like, there's no one answer to that question, because no one of those questions is the same. It's so dependent on the piece of content, the associated metadata, which is like triggers that you can control, like hashtags and all that stuff. And it really comes down to who's presenting it to who. So to say that there's an algorithm is against you, that's definitely not the case. And everything that you do, it really comes down to content, because you'll hear the term content is kings time and time again. But I can't stress that enough, because I get asked specifically on the topic of hashtags saying, well, what's the best hashtags for me to use? I could not give you a right answer for that question, because one, it's going to change all the time. It's going to be dependent on who you are. But a lot of people don't think about it like this. It also is very dependent on what that actual piece of content is. So Instagram has AI built into it that they literally know what's in that photo. So say you had a photo of a car and you did hashtag cat because it's a very popular hashtag. That would actually hurt you. That would be very, very bad, because they would maybe show you someone who likes cats, but it's a car. And then that feedback is then sent back to Instagram and they penalize you for it. So there's definitely, I think having a basic understanding of it is very, very powerful. I think people become so afraid of it that they don't even try. But once you do get in there and you find a bit of success, it becomes quite addicting. And then you figure out that it's not against you. It's just you got to play the game correctly.
Yeah. So to that point, oh my goodness, hashtags. Let's talk hashtags. Like
Yeah.
hashtags have been around forever. It
Yes.
seems like, even though I guess they're not forever. It just feels like forever.
Yeah.
Um,
Sure.
and people throw them around. And I know when I first started using hashtags, and even, I'll be honest, not that long ago, you're like hashtag best day of my life, whatever,
Yeah.
or these things,
Yeah.
and people sometimes take what they do on their personal Instagram
Yes.
and try to do the same thing on their business Instagram. And that does not work. Would you kind of dive into that for us for a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love that you said that, because I think it was in my hashtag video that I actually said, like, you don't want to use hashtags like your grandma does. Because like when she posts a photo, she'll just say like hashtag weekend with the kids or something like that, right? It's just like, it's not just defeating the purpose. So what hashtag is, it's a way of identifying the type of content and what's actually in there. And the reason why you want to do that is because that makes Instagram's job substantially easier to attract the right person. So you only want to associate your content with what it's actually associated with and the type of person that you're trying to draw towards you. So like you said, that there could be tags that wouldn't make sense for you to use because of your business practices. So you likely wouldn't use like weekend at the cottage, right? Unless say your business, like obviously there's cases for anything, but unless you were like a cottage company or sold like alcohol or something like that, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, like enjoying the cottage with the weekend at the cottage, but it really is dependent. Yeah, you don't want to use it like that on your business. And another thing that the contrast there, because people view personal the same as business, and you can't do it like that because a lot of people will only throw in like 1 or 2 tags on their personal posts because they don't want to look like they're going to try hard. I would say it's probably the easiest way to say it. But as a business, your sole goal for being on there is exposure. So if Instagram gives you 30 hashtags and you can find 30 valuable hashtags, why would you not leverage that or almost all of them? Like I recommend using at least 22 hashtags on every post if you can find relevant ones. And that's simply because you're throwing another dart at the board that might stick. And you might perform very well on that hashtag, and that might bring you in some customers. And even if it's one customer, because you threw in an extra tag with an extra 10 characters, that's time well spent. So a lot of people don't think about this. They just make the content, put it out there, and become very discouraged when it doesn't perform. But that's because they're not leveraging all the tools that are there that Instagram provides you to find success.
Sure. So can we talk hashtag 101 for a minute?
Yeah,
So
for sure.
go ahead. I was going to say, so for anybody who doesn't quite know how it works yet, how does a hashtag help a customer find you?
For sure. So this is going to be dependent on what your business is, where you are, et cetera. So if you're like a local bricks and mortar, the fact that you can hashtag your local city or your surrounding area, that's super important because people are looking that stuff up all the time. And they're also, Instagram is moderated to show you content based on your previous activity. So say if someone from their town, they likely know other people from their town. So they're constantly liking photos from that town. They're more likely to be shown your photo once the Instagram algorithm knows that it's in that town as well. So by doing all these things, it really targets your ability to approach the right people. So you want to make sure to be using tags all the time. Also location tagging, which you can do right on the photo or video, which is super, super helpful. But beyond that, with putting a group of tags together, it allows you to track the type of people, because think about it like this. Who is the type of person you're trying to attract? And then what would they be looking in to, say, Instagram to try to find that? So for example, it might be food in your local city. So let's say I live in Guelph in Canada. So it's like food in Guelph, right? That's a pretty powerful hashtag. There may not be a ton of competition there, but people looking and going there are coming with very high intent, and they're looking to make a purchasing decision. So if you're on there and you're that face that they see, that provides you the opportunity to connect with someone, they find you, and then you can further that relationship. And if you're the one that they see, likely they're going to come and see you. So then if that relationship then comes to be personal and then you provide a great experience, that could be a lifelong customer because you use the right hashtag. So when you start thinking about it like that, more of a long-term business opportunity, that's where the true value really is.
Sure. And so there's 2 ways that you really highlighted there that can connect you with your customers, right? The first one is that, if people are liking pictures, that are tagged Quelf, then
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be more likely to be shown your picture. And then the second one is people searching for things in Quelf. So
Yes.
as far as searching for things in your town, or searching for use the example that you had, searching for a plumber, or searching for financial services, or searching for something like that, how do
Yeah.
they find you in that search? I know some people are like, I don't know how all that works.
Yeah. So I got my phone right in front of me. So if you were just to go into Instagram and then you type the little search bar, which is the magnifying glass there, and then you can go search. And then if you go to tags, let's just say I'll do it right now. So like Guelph restaurants. I'm doing this in real time, so hopefully my Wi-Fi will cooperate. So there's 500 plus posts. So what someone would do if they're looking for that, they type it into the search bar, and the tag is right there. And then the posts are going to show up there. And then based off of recency and then also the performance of that post will dictate what shows up near the top. So when someone's coming to shop, sorry, if you're near the top, the likelihood is that they're going to buy from you. Another thing that you can do in terms of the search is if I were to type in Guelph restaurants into the search bar, if there's no population in terms of a name or a username, then it'll just suggest hashtags. But what you can do, the only real SEO, search engine optimization thing that you can do within Instagram is to include what you think would be a solid search term for your business and have it actually in your name. Because since no one, and no one's doing this right now in my local cities, that no one has Guelph restaurant in their name, so no one's showing up. Whereas who knows if someone's searching that, right? And they could take advantage of that by just saying, even if it was McDonald's dash Guelph restaurant, they would show up. So it may not be a ton of people, but again, these things they all compound. So it's these little things that you do correctly that can allow you to have the edge, and then word of mouth travels fast.
Sure does. So just another, thing to keep in mind, brand bosses, is that sometimes we think about hashtags. I know some people are like, to Ben's point, I don't want to put all of these hashtags. It looks like I'm trying too hard or whatever. But it could literally be the thing that connects you with your next customer.
100%. And I think the power of one is something that I like to preach about all the time, is that I think people get too discouraged because of vanity metrics that people have been thrown in front of, that, oh, if I don't have thousands of followers, I'm not doing it right. If you were to tell someone 20, 30 years ago that you can get in front of a potential customer for free by posting something that takes you 30 seconds, like, that is truly insane. I think that perspective shift can really open your eyes to show you that this is a crazy opportunity.
So how do you know? This is definitely what I want to pick your brain about for a bit here. How do you know what hashtag to use? Because there are so many hashtags out there. And I know I used to think that, like, podcasters of Instagram, for example, was a good hashtag to use. And there's 4.6, I think I looked last, million, posts tagged podcasters of Instagram.
Wow.
So I used to think, oh, that's a good thing. I'm using a tag that people know.
Yeah.
But then watching your videos, I was like, I'm doing it wrong. So Can you speak to that for a minute?
Yeah, 100%. So finding the right set of hashtags is going to be relative to every specific person and the content they're posting. So like you said, when you saw that huge hashtag with 4.6 million results, that is very unlikely that you're going to rank near the top. And when people typically search a hashtag, they don't search for too long. Like, think about when you Google something, you typically aren't going past the first page. The same is typically true on Instagram. So if you don't have the ability to rank above the fold, which is the term for it, which is in the first 9 posts, the likelihood of people showing you is dramatically decreased. And how Instagram dictates who gets up there is based on engagement velocity and level of competition. So that's what the power of understanding your numbers really comes into play. Is once you are equipped with your typical performance on a post, that can then dictate the tags that you use. And I did a whole video about this. It's actually the video that you found, to strategically format your group of tags for your specific profile and the content that you're targeting. So if you do have a small audience, that's okay. We all have to start somewhere. There are specific tags that you want to use because you'll actually rank in them. And I say, I like to use this term today with a client, is that as someone who is starving, would you rather some food or no food at all?
Yeah.
You'd rather some food. So I'd rather have some of the pie than none of it at all. So instead of going for the 4.3 tags, which is a ton of people go into that mistake, they'll put like 30 tags that all have over 1 million. You're going to get 0 impressions from that. I would much rather 10. And that may come from using in 30 far less competitive hashtags. So it is all relative. As you grow up and scale, you can start to rank in more competitive hashtags. And that's kind of the whole compounding effect of building your community and allowing it to drive you to then bring in more people. So that's the values. A lot of people think like, oh, why would I put this much effort in for one customer? But that one customer could lead to another fan, which could lead to another fan, which could lead to tens of fans, which could lead to you ranking on a very competitive hashtag. That could lead to hundreds of fans. So it's definitely a building block.
Yeah. And I love that you brought out, like, you would rather have 10 than be ranked with 4.6 million, because also the reality is that even though you might be starting small, the likelihood of you being able to have genuine relationship with 10 is much more likely. And then, that creates word of mouth marketing, which is the absolute best that you can have for your brand.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to clarify, if something said 10 results, which I don't even think it'll say that, I think the lowest it'll show is like 100, then I would say don't use the 10. I meant like 10 impressions. So like, for example, if cause you can see this all in your analytics. So you could say impressions, like I can look at my last post and it can say impressions from hashtags. It'll actually tell you exactly how many people found your post because of hashtags. So what I mean by that is if you were to go and use all of your tag spots on very, very competitive hashtags, because you have no ability to rank, it's completely useless. No one's going to see you. Whereas say you could go for the far less competitive ones and you may not get a ton of exposure, but you're still going to get some.
Sure. So how can you tell which hashtags are working and which ones aren't working?
For sure. So again, that really comes down to the person and the account. But in terms of tags, it definitely comes based on user activity. So what people are looking for at that given time. So for example, like hashtag quarantine was probably not getting looked at all. And now it's probably blowing up, right? So it's
Yeah.
very much a fluid thing. It's not static. So I use a tool called Flick. I'm actually one of their partners. And they have a tool where you can actually go in and look at hashtags and your ability to rank in them, because you can associate it with your account, and they'll essentially do a lot of the math work for you by having your typical engagement velocity and seeing your ability to do it, as well as designating yourself a niche. So that can help a lot. But you get a freebie trial, but then after that there is a cost. So you can do all of your research independently. Like, you don't need to pay for a service. Before I was making money on Instagram, I was doing this all myself, and you still totally can. So as I outlined in the video, I'll just touch on it briefly here because the whole video goes far more in depth. But when you go and look at a hashtag, obviously you want it related to what you're trying to speak about, the niche that you're in, and you want it to have decent search volume. That's obviously all relative to how big your following is. And how you go find that is the level of engagement. So the term I used before was engagement velocity. So typically what matters the most in terms of ranking on hashtags is your level of engagement in the first hour or two. Early engagement is a huge trigger to Instagram to associate the level of value or stock within that post. So say you typically get 50 likes within an hour on your post. Let's just say that. If you were to go look for a hashtag and you were to go look through it and see all the top posts and they have hundreds and hundreds of likes, there's no chance you're getting there. So you want to try to find posts that are in your ballpark so that you're going to have an opportunity to actually rank in them. So that's where the whole ranking comes into play. I speak of this far more in depth in the video and actually break it down. But math does actually matter a little bit. It's not too tough, but there is some math involved.
Yeah, definitely go watch that video. It blew my mind. I think I actually watched that one like 3 times in a row and took a ton of notes. And
That's awesome.
I tried the free trial of Flick, and I've
Yep.
been using, the hashtags that it suggested.
Yep.
And this is what I'm saying, like, my followers grew. And I love that, for me, it's not just about number of followers, it's about quality of followers.
100%.
And the followers that were growing were engaging with me. And then, of course, I always go and say, okay, well, who is this person? What are they up to? Blah, blah, blah. And these are genuinely people that I can serve with the content that I provide. So
100%. And that is super, super, super important. And it also, I love to hear that, because that means that you're doing it right. A lot of people will get a follower and then never interact with them, never engage with them. When you are starting out and you are small, that's actually an incredible opportunity to build a very stable, solid foundation. Because once you get to a certain point, replying to everyone in a prompt manner becomes very difficult. But early on in the beginning, you can treat that person with crazy levels of service and value that just creates a very, very deep level of connection. So leverage that. Again, with relationships being so key to Instagram, you want to take advantage of every opportunity you have to serve them. And then they're going to help you out in the long run too.
sure. And yeah, I mean, in some ways, before everything that's happening right now, you would think of like going to networking meetings or going to
Yeah.
whatever. Like, this is a simple way you can do this right from your home, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
takes literally seconds. It takes literally seconds to build a relationship with somebody right now.
100%. And I'll share this little tip because it's done wonders for me. Is that when you do reach out to someone or someone reaches out to you and you get back to them, do so in a personal manner. And I'd send voice notes. That's what I do. So if someone sends me a DM, I almost always reply very quickly as soon as I can. And it's usually with a voice note. One, that saves me time because I don't have to type it all out with my fingers. Two, it's so much more personal. I can speak to the fact that I just read what they had said. They now know it's not my team doing it, it's me. And it's so much more personal. You would not believe how many times people are like, oh my goodness, you just made my day. I never thought you'd reply. Because if someone's DMing you, this is not the first time they've DM'd someone, but you can be the first one to reply. And if you do that, that relationship is there and it will last.
That's literally how we connected. So yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was super impressed because right away you
Yeah,
got back to me, and it was a voice message, and then you were like, "Hey, do you want to, you want to do a show?" I was like, "Yes, yes, I
yeah,
would love to do a show." So,
yeah.
yeah, like, there cannot be enough said about the power of personal connection. And I totally
Mm-hmm.
get it. I totally understand that as you scale, you have to be able to leverage your time and, particularly some of these big influencers that are putting out amazing content that's literally changing people's lives.
Yes.
And they're doing that for hundreds of thousands of people at a time. I understand. You have to have a team, you have to have whatever. But for me, whenever I get a response that's really from the person that I reached out to, that means the world to me. And my
100%.
respect for that person just went to a whole new level. And, really, that's branding. That right there is branding. Like when you responded to me right away with a personal, it was a voice message, I believe, and you acknowledged my comment that I had appreciated your content and all this kind of stuff. It just like the way that, because branding makes people feel a certain way, right? And so when you made me feel that way, that took, like, I already had respect for you from finding you on YouTube, right? First of all, you're like, whoa, this person's on YouTube, and I had respect for you from the amazing content and the value that provided for me. But then when you responded in that way, that took my respect for you to a whole new level.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, hey, what's Ben saying? What content is he putting out right now? Like, I want to stay engaged with you
Yeah.
because there are people putting out content, be it businesses, be it trainings, whatever it is, that you might engage with and get what you need, and then you kind of go on with life.
Mm-hmm. It's like transactional.
Transactional, exactly. But the people that you build genuine connection with are the people you want to naturally go deeper with and stay connected with long term.
100%. Yeah, no, I love that you said that. First of all, thank you. I appreciate that. And it was awesome to connect with you. I'm super glad that we had the opportunity to do this. But a big reason, exactly, another thing that you got so right was that branding is what, and people remember this, they remember how you make them feel, not necessarily what happened. So if you can create a feeling, it is actually impossible to overstate the importance of that. That is so, so crucial. And a big reason where I found that and kind of like the light bulb moment went off was when I was starting my podcast. I was reaching out to so many people every single day that I looked up to, and it was explaining to them how much I looked up to them and I wanted to speak to them. This was like probably 4 or 5 years ago when I didn't know anything about social media. I was just starting out, right? And the few that got back to me, I remember how great that made me feel. But so then right then I was like, I'm going to try to get back to everyone who reached out to me once I've done enough to provide some value to people. I was like, that is, because I remember exactly how it felt, and that was so powerful. And the most vivid memories, I think anybody can relate to this, is they remember the feeling. That's what allows that connection to be far substantially deeper. And you can remember that so vividly because we're emotional beings. So if you can create that, so powerful.
Absolutely. And you can create that through your response to people. You can create that through your content. You can create that. I feel like stories are a fantastic place to do that right now. You know, like IGTV is great. And I love that you can put out long form content now. But for me, it's stories really where people are building that connection because it's kind of letting you in behind the scenes, because an IGTV is good and that absolutely has its place, right? Like there's places for all kinds of content, and for a
Yes.
business, like there are times that you want to show up and you want to know what you're talking. I mean, you always want to know what you're talking about, but you want to
Yeah.
look like you know what you're talking about and be professional and whatever.
Yeah.
But then you can also be doing your story, whether you're in the workshop or whether you're hey, just got off a call with a client, blah, blah, blah. Like that to me is really the place to be real. And that's where people, whenever somebody shares a piece of their life with you behind the scenes, it makes you feel connected to them. And I feel like that's such a powerful way to build relationship that not enough businesses are leveraging right now. Would you agree with that?
I would agree 110%. I think it comes down to fear. People are so concerned, like, what do I post? And Instagram stories are very forgiving. They're gone in 24 hours. So go nuts with it. Allow yourself to be creative and have fun with it. I think a lot of people restrict themselves too much because they're so concerned about looking professional. Like, this has to be a certain way. And they just get analysis paralysis. They think about it for 2 days so long that they don't even end up doing anything and the moment is gone. Being spontaneous and being real in the moment is super, super powerful. And that is the platform. So that is the form on Instagram that really shines and that comes through. That's what you should do that. Absolutely, your main feed post should maybe be a little more polished. And if you're doing IGTV, certainly you may want to keep it a little more professional, but absolutely have fun with stories. And then again, do as the name would suggest. It's a story. Tell a story.
Yeah.
Share the story. Stories are very, very powerful. Stories evoke emotion. So it's just very, very, it's a very great tool that too few people are using, and you're 100% correct. And it comes with just going for it and having fun and seeing what people connect with. And so many people are watching stories that you'll start to see what people like, because they'll literally respond to you, whether it be in emojis or messages, and then provide them more of that. It's a great way to get some market research in real time and see what your audience wants.
Yeah, that's true. That's a really good point. Like, you don't have to wait for something, to post and go live and whatever. Like,
No,
there's so many polls and questions, and you can start with a funny one and then ask a serious one. And like, you already
for
have their
sure.
attention because they love the funny one, like, what's your doppelganger? Like, you already have their attention at that point. And then
Yeah,
you could come around and be like, hey, what's the most helpful thing you've learned from one of my videos? You've already got
yep.
them engaged because of the funny. And now you can do the serious and they're along for the ride, and you got market research out of both for free.
100%. And another thing that is a huge benefit of that is, like I said earlier, that Instagram is able to track the level of relationship. Someone replying and then you replying back, like through DMs or through them replying to your story, is super, they view that as like a very deep level of connection. They view that like they're almost your friend. So once you've done that and you can get them to interact with you, they will be shown your content unless they unfollow you. Like they will always be shown your content, because
Wow.
Instagram now thinks that you guys have a very deep relationship. Because why would you be DMing someone random, right? So
Yeah.
they can only use this loose data to put things together for themselves. And so that's a huge trigger for them. So if you can get people responding to your stories, interacting with your stories, all these things are huge. So exactly like you said, like asking the questions or putting out polls, people who respond to your polls will always be shown your posts. So definitely leverage stories. There's so many different features they're adding all the time. So it's definitely a huge, huge resource, and it's an ever-changing one too.
Here's a silly one, maybe off topic, but not. Speaking
Yeah,
of stories and new
yeah.
things they're putting out all the time, I thought it was, I'm just going to be real. I thought it was the stupidest thing when they came out with like bunny ears and dog ears and cat ears and whatever. And
Yeah.
like, now my niece is 2 years old and she absolutely loves, when we play with that stuff in stories.
Yes.
Then I started seeing all of these like professional influencers doing it in their stories. And I
Yeah.
was like, am I the only one who thinks this is weird? But then I learned that whenever you use Instagram's latest features, that they reward you for that. So then that made sense to me, which doesn't mean like you have to be in a business suit and have dog ears on, but that there is a reward in the algorithm from being an early adopter. Is that true?
That is 100% true. Yeah. So if anybody who's watched some of my content, I've mentioned that numerous times because that is a truth. So you'll notice that people will do that. And the reason why they do that is because when a new feature gets rolled out, that's their point of emphasis at the time. So the best way to get people to use it is to show more people that it's being used. So it's very, very similar to how social media's grow from infancy, is the fact that if you just create content, they'll reward you by showing you new people, because creators leads to fans, fans are consumers. So as a business model, it's actually a good investment for them. So absolutely, whenever there's a new feature, integrate that in whatever aligns with your brand, but definitely try to jump on it as soon as you can and have fun with it too, because typically they are fun and usually pretty lighthearted in most senses. And it gives you more opportunity to create connections, which is obviously something we've said time and time again, but I can't stress on it enough.
I'm waiting for them to come out with a unicorn one.
Hey, you know what? Hopefully they hear this and get on that.
So, as far as creating engagement, we've been talking about that through stories.
Mhm.
What are some ways? I know we talked about hashtags, but you
Yep.
also have a lot of insight into ways to create engagement around the post content itself. What are
For
some
sure.
ways that businesses can be doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a few things that people should really consider is, again, paying attention to what works. So what I've been seeing has been working very, very well is that a ton of favoritism has been going towards video content and also carousels. So a lot of the a lot of the pages that I manage, I've seen substantially easier to get on the explore page or rank in hashtags for using that type of content. And that makes a lot of sense because so when you go over to look at your explore page or you look at a hashtag, there is like eight pictures and one video. There's definitely more than 8 times the amount of pictures than there are videos. So it's just simply you're competing against less people. So definitely, if you've never used video, try incorporating that. And then in terms of carousel, the best way that you can do it and why it works so well is because each swipe is like a form of engagement, and also Instagram is also able to track the the duration of time spent on your content. And naturally, if you have 10 carousels, that's 10 seconds plus 10 interactions they had to slide. So the best way to leverage that is through telling a story, whatever it may be, whatever's on point with your brand. So say you've developed a voice of somewhat comedic way of playing with it. So say you're a plumber and you joke about the fact that the stereotypes that come along with plumbing or whatever it may be. And maybe you can give them an at-home plumbing tip, but tell it in a carousel and a funny story. That's going to perform very, very well, especially when it's associated with relevant tags, because it's providing value and it's also keeping them on there for a very long period of time, providing ample opportunity to give engagement. So that, from a content perspective, will lead to more engagement and more people being exposed to it. And then another thing that is substantially underutilized is the caption section. That you want to leverage that. So many people harp on content, but they don't spend the time realizing that your caption is equally part of your content as the actual photo or video is. So if you don't leverage that to its fullest extent, you're shooting yourself in the foot and you're wasting so much potential reach that you could have done with maybe putting in great copy that would have led to a little bit more engagement, which would have led to ranking in stories, right? So these things all feed together, and that's why having a strategy and a thought going into this is very, very important. But those are a few ways that are currently working in terms of getting a little bit more reach.
And you said another thing in one of your videos too. In addition to that, that was all awesome, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I know there's some things that you can do to kind of trick it too, right? So I know one of them was like engaging with people around the time that you're going to post, because then they're more likely to engage with you. Am I saying that right? Like,
Yeah. So that just enacts the law of reciprocity. So humans are conditioned for many, many things. It's actually, anybody who's a marketer, I recommend you reading this book, Influence. Have you read it before?
I have not. I'm going to go get it.
You should absolutely get it. So what it is, it's the psychology of persuasion. And what it speaks to is the main principles that humans have been wired to act a certain way. And we have these, I forget what he calls them, but he calls it like we're almost machines in the way where something happens and we have an impulse that just plays. Like we have a tape that just, once this happens, this happens. And one of those is reciprocity. We have been conditioned over time for the sustainment of our species, and now from an economic perspective, that we are expected and we expect ourselves to reciprocate whenever someone gives us an action. So
Yeah.
when you're about to post some content, you can leverage that. You can use that tool, that tool of influence, to go comment on recent posts. Don't go crazy with it because you could get an action block. So go comment on a few people, build that relationship, and they're far more likely to comment on yours when it's coming out because they're going to be shown it because now the relationship's there and they feel almost obligated to because you've already done it. So that's definitely a way that you can do it. I typically do it if I'm going to post and I have a bit of time. It's definitely worthwhile, and it's a great way to get going because I think a lot of people are intimidated to build that relationship through commenting on someone random or someone that they may not have a deep relationship with. But that relationship is like a comment and a DM away. So it's like you could get that ball rolling and really enhance that relationship.
And it works. And it
Yes,
works
absolutely.
fast.
Yeah,
You
for
know?
sure.
And yeah, so that was one of the things that I started trying. And it was very interesting to me because I think you said do it within like an hour or two of when you know you're going to post.
Hmm.
And you really do get that engagement when you post, which then triggers the Instagram algorithm that you got early engagement. So they should
Yes.
show it to more people. And the amount of, like you were just talking about, interactions on quote unquote random people's content,
Yeah,
that have led to an actual like relationship. And I use that word like carefully because
of course.
obviously, there's stages to building like a real, interaction relationship with somebody. But like some of the posts that I've commented on, first of all, I do see their stuff now.
Yeah.
But like I know that their daughter just had a birthday.
Yeah,
And
it's
I know
deep.
that whatever, and then when you're commenting, it's no longer just a random person
No.
because you are building that relationship and you're like, oh my goodness, your daughter just learned how to ride her bike or, whatever. You feel invested in what's going on in the content that person is posting. I mean, it's not, it's not all stuff like that, but like you feel invested in those businesses or the stuff that those people are putting out because you've started to build that relationship. So it really is leveraging the golden rule, right? Like do unto others as you'd have them do unto you.
Yep.
And at the same time, it's not only like everybody wins. So it's
Yes.
helping you with your Instagram algorithm, but it's also, again, providing a place for human connection that I feel we're also hungry for right now. Would you
A
agree with
hun-
that?
100%. And I love that, all that you just said there. And I have a few things to touch on. The first being is to the fact that a lot of people are intimidated or scared by it. Some of my best friends on this planet, I literally met through Instagram. So
Wow.
you have to understand that like people are people. And so it's the same way with like people who are shy or about speaking to new people in real life. I always say to them, well, how'd you meet your best friend? Like at one point your best friend was a stranger. So I'm not saying go up and hug everybody, but I'm saying like you to develop a relationship, someone has to make that first step. And a
Yeah.
comment may be exactly what leads to that. Because like you said, you become more invested. They now feel like they know you. They're going to be more open with you. They're now going to see what you post. And then that relationship gets substantially deeper. Another thing that I love that you mentioned, was the time frame in which to do it. Why it's powerful to do it an hour or 2 hour before was because it's right in the sweet spot. It doesn't seem like you're doing it strictly for that reason, which you're not. It's very important. You want to make it a genuine comment. But two, it's like you through doing that, you're understanding the typical user behavior of an Instagram. When you typically post for the next hour or two, you're tracking the engagement you receive and you're replying to all your comments. So they're on Instagram. So it's just far enough away so it doesn't seem like it's tit for tat, and they're still on there. So that's why that time frame is strategically there, about an hour or two.
That's huge. All right. So now I'm going to open a can of worms for a second and
Awesome.
ask the great debate.
Okay.
Hashtags in the caption or in the comments?
So that's a lot of people stress about that. And I think that's another thing that people just make as an excuse for analysis process. I think I haven't noticed much of a difference. I run a ton of pages, and some of them I'll do in the caption right there. And some of them I'll do in the comments. I don't think it really matters. I believe it's just a tagging system, exactly what it sounds like. So once it's associated with that content, it's there. I don't think it's better or worse. I have not seen anything directly from Instagram that speaks to anything other than that. So I'm just going off my own performance that I've seen. So I think it really depends on what you want it to look like. Because some people don't like the look of it in the caption section. So I would say experiment, and then also building off of that, knowledge again is power. So come to your own conclusion. So try some with it in the captions, try some with it in the first comment, and see if you find a difference. Because just because there might be a rule of thumb, it doesn't mean it applies to everybody. And it's always good to do your own research. So that'd be my very diplomatic answer to that.
I love it. That's a fantastic answer. And then what about like the dots, like separating it with the dots?
Yeah. So again, that's just simply for aesthetics. That's just to try to get it down further, because so it appears, because when you go look at you have a bunch of comments. If you want to look at more, you have to like click through to drop it down. So by doing that, you're separating it again even further. So that's strictly just for aesthetic purposes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it wouldn't
Awesome.
hurt you. It wouldn't make it better. It's just the people enjoy the look of it better.
Yes. I do. I am one of those people. No, but I'm so grateful to hear your expert opinion on that, because I have observed content, I'll put it that way, and people who get very fired up one way or the other, and I've kind
Yes.
of felt like,
Oh God.
does it matter? Like,
Yeah,
does it
and
actually matter?
you'll come across a lot of that in Instagram, especially like the comment sections on my YouTube videos about Instagram specific videos. Everyone has their own rule, and it's 100% absolute. And I'm just like, to this point, I don't even engage with them anymore. Like I don't even try to get into a debate. I'm just like, all right, man, perfect. As long as it's working for you, that's great. So yeah, there's no rule of thumb there. It's definitely a dealer's choice kind of thing.
What about consistency? How important is consistency in your posts?
Consistency is very important, whatever social media you're on, definitely on Instagram as well. So what I always advise, and it's just a good rule of thumb, I think it's a good practice regardless of what you're doing, is just setting up like a posting schedule to remain consistent. Consistency is all relative, and it all depends on the type of content that you're posting. Say if you're posting this incredible cinematic IGTV video, you can't do that every day, right? Like time needs to go into it, and like you have to think about getting to the mind of your viewer. Like there's such a thing as viewer fatigue. So
Yeah.
again, for the example of your plumber, if he was posting 5 times a day, you're gonna unfollow the guy,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
if he's posting content even once a day, and it's light and it's educational and I know, that's okay. So there is a sweet spot you want to find. Consistency, they reward you, because this is one of the rule of thumbs when it comes to social media, is that one of the most important thing that they harp on is time on the platform, because they know that once a viewing duration gets to a certain point, they get retention substantially longer. So they're just trying to keep you there for as long as possible, because once you get down that wormhole, they've got you for a long time and you're consuming a lot of ads, which means more money for them. So your ability to keep them on the platform longer is very, very valuable. And how they create that is through creating popular creators, right? So that and then if you say, okay, I'm now here every Monday, they know to show your stuff to those people every single Monday. And it's shown that it's going to keep them on the platform a little bit longer. So it's those little things. It's even bigger. And it's even more important on YouTube, but consistency is also very, very important on Instagram, because even with very, very big accounts, like some of the accounts that I've run, if you go cold, getting that engagement back is very, very difficult, because you lose all that momentum and you lose your ability to attract more people. There is a natural churn. A ton of people on Instagram will like start accounts and then maybe they'll go cold for it for a few months. And if you're not continuing to replenish that engagement level, then you can fall off. And that comes from typically going cold for a long period of time. So there's tons of accounts all over Instagram with like hundreds of thousands of real followers that have been cold right now. And if they were to go back, it'd be very, very difficult to get it back up.
Wow.
So consistency is very important. And again, make that just something that you can keep up with. So if it's a post a week, by all means, just do a post a week. And I would say just try to pick a day or experiment with days, see what works best, but try to do at least once a week and stick to that and keep yourself accountable.
Does it need to be consistent time of day, or is it more the day that matters?
Honestly, it's not even necessarily the day per se that matters. I think it can be beneficial to get into that rhythm and routine, but I think it's just the frequency that you really want to get down. With YouTube, I would say the day is more important, because that's a lot more, again, of getting into the user's behavior pattern. Is we become accustomed to watching like television shows on a specific day and time. So when you can create that and block out, you become that time of the day, that's incredibly powerful. And that's how you can get the early engagement. But the distinction between Instagram and YouTube is that Instagram, if they've interacted with your content before and they follow you, they're going to be showing your stuff. That's not true on YouTube. The majority of my views come from people that aren't subscribed to me.
Wow.
So the vast majority of my views. So that's just because of how YouTube has evolved. So that's why the consistency of being a specific time, and that's something I need to get better at with YouTube. I've been bad at sticking to a specific time, but by doing that, you become that piece of time for someone's day, and you become part of the routine. And that's very valuable, because that early engagement happens and then you get pushed to more people.
Wow, you gave me a lot to chew on there. No, that's really good, because I've kind of wondered about that. Obviously, I know that consistency is important. How long do you think it takes to go cold?
That's all relative, but for say some like theme pages I've run before, like if you go cold for like a month, you're gonna notice a pretty substantial dip. But that's because on a theme page, you're typically posting like upwards of 5 times a day.
Yeah.
So it's definitely relevant to your habits and your patterns, because Instagram, again, as they're tracking every other user's feedback, they're tracking the creator's feedback as well, right? So if you're typically posting once a week and then you go cold for numerous months, they're like, well, they where is this person, right?
Yeah.
They don't have something to say. Like, we gave them all of this trust by showing them to people, and now they're not here.
Wow.
So consistency is important.
I love the way you just phrased that, as far as like, we gave them all this trust, showing them to people, and now they're not here. You know, people can think of social media as a place to show off, or they can, think of it as an obligation, or they can think of it as a marketing tool. But, and they can get angry with the algorithm or whatever. But how many people look at it as trust?
That's the best thing you can do too. And it's across all platforms. Like there's a few constants with whatever social media platform you're using. And the trust factor is huge, because much like you're a business and you're looking for attention, their whole business is attention. So by them giving your placement to people, they're taking a risk on you. So, and the more risks that think about a job. If someone gives you a new task and you do great at it, what's going to happen? They're going to give you more tasks. So it's very much the same with like YouTube and Instagram. If they show you to someone who is new, and the person gets off the app because they didn't like what you have to do, that speaks negatively. But if you keep them there and you do so consistently, that trust continues to begin to grow. And then you have credibility within your space. That's huge with like on YouTube. Like I've built credibility with the topics that I speak about. So now they have a lot more trust in me. They start showing your content. And that's where the growth gets exponential, because you can do all the things right. And it's going to go piece by piece by piece. But once they get that trust in you, that's when it goes, whew. And I finally reached that point in YouTube where I was getting like a few hundred subscribers a month now. I was getting a few subscribers a month, like back, probably only like 6-7 months ago. And now I get the past few months I've been getting like 4,000 a month. because I've
Uh-huh.
built that trust with YouTube, and they're now going to show any video I make to some people, which previously they did not at all because they didn't know me.
And I was one of those people.
Absolutely.
So you've dropped so much wisdom. This is awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you were a business owner,
Mm-hmm.
well, that sounds funny. You are a business owner, but I mean, if you were
Yeah.
speaking
Hypothetical. Yes, I understand.
hypothetical, if you
Yeah.
were speaking to a business owner who knows that the audience they want to reach is on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
and they want to build that trust. You know, we've talked about a lot of things about hashtags and engagement and building relationships and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would say to a business owner who maybe is like, okay, I need to do this, but I'm kind of scared. I don't want to mess it up. Or, oh man, I've gone cold for a couple months or something like that. What would you say to the business owner who knows that now is the time, for a lack of better word, to resurrect their Instagram
Yeah.
or to take it to a new level?
Yeah. So even if like going cold, that should never be a reason for you not to try to come back. Like that's more of an excuse that people will use. Definitely, even if you've been gone cold for years, like it's still worth coming back because some is again better than nothing. So by having some sort of presence, that's awesome. I would say for someone, a business owner who say they're just starting out and because they've been scared to in the past, there's tons of YouTubers like myself and my channel has tons of value to get started. And then I would say see people around you. Chances are, if you're a business owner, you probably have a kid or a niece, nephew, whatever it may be, who has some sort of level of knowledge, right? And some sort of aptitude towards it. And see what you can get from them. Get them to do it. You could probably pay them, if they're young enough, probably like $5. I would have been gone crazy for $5 back in the day, right? So, and then they could manage that for you and then slowly become more acclimated to it. And then beyond that, it depends how serious you want to take it. For example, like so a big part of my business is consulting with businesses and brands about how to best leverage this stuff. But the ability to reach so many people for a cost-efficient manner has become quite difficult. So that's why I'm putting a course together so that you
Awesome.
can get it for a substantially cheaper cost than what it would cost for me to come in there, simply because I'm not exhausting the hours. So that's another resource. There's tons of courses out there. Mine will be out in the next few months. There's some out there right now, and there's tons of free content on YouTube. My channel was one of the places that's where I would biasly send you first, but there's tons of content there and so many other great creators in the community that give this stuff away for free.
Awesome. Well, oh my goodness, Ben, thank you so, so much for dropping so much wisdom with us today. If brand bosses want to connect with you beyond the show, what's the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, for sure. No, thank you for having me on. I had a blast. I always love to talk shop, so it was awesome to speak with you and great to see what you're doing. I think you're doing a very valuable service, especially right now, and I think people are going to be very, very appreciative. So I'm awesome. Sorry, this is awesome, and I'm super happy to do this with you. And then as you can connect with me, I'm on TikTok at just Ben Leavitt. I am on Instagram at Ben Leavitt _, and then YouTube is just my name, Ben Leavitt, and that's spelled Leav as in Victor, ITT.
Thank you so much.
No, thank
Well,
you.
my pleasure. Well, we hope you found great value in today's episode. If you did, please rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends. I want to equip as many as I can, and I know Ben does too, to go out and rock your brand like a boss. We'll catch you on the next episode. Keep rocking.